Hey, good morning. Ben with you again for Studio on the Lake. Got an ambitious project for you today. This is a dragon head, kind of a wall hanging, and I gotta warn you, it's not short. This thing's a little bit long-winded. There's a chunk of basswood. In fact, the last one sitting in the rafters at the studio. A couple days ago, a big storm blew through here and blocked the door to the shed once again. I need to pull out 10 or 20 pieces and put them back up in the rafters of the studio. Let them finish aging. Got a nice wood fire in there. Finishes them off real nicely. This one's about 3 years old, but it is the last one. And as you can see, the size that I normally cut on there is designed for decoys or loon blanks. This is the last piece, and the reason for it is on the back. You'll see that shortly here. No music on this one. I'm kind of liking the tools. I like the sound that they make as they go through here. Give you a little opportunity. I did speed a lot of this up. This is about 4 hours of carving, and there's really no pattern here. There's that nasty back to that thing. I couldn't really use this one as a decoy, hence it being the last one sitting up there in the rafters. Got several checks and splits through the back, and wasn't really thick enough. A couple projects in the background there, little ducks that need textured and stoned. I decided to flatten the back out a little bit. That's my adze. Doesn't look very sharp. I can assure you it's razor sharp. I'm just kind of taking sissy cuts here because I really don't want to split any of this off the back and wreck it. I should be able to finish this thing in 2, but this one's about 40 minutes long. I gotta warn you. So if you're following along with the channel, go ahead and click subscribe in the lower right hand corner there, and by all means leave a comment. I decided to try a little longer one. This can't really be done in a short version. Most of these videos are 3 to 4 hours long in the actual making of the piece. This is about 4 hours worth of filming condensed into about, like I said, 40 minutes, give or take. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. This might go in the fire at some point. I might get all the way through this and think, man, this thing is nasty. I did leave as much as the ambient sound in here as possible. I spared you a little bit when I get down to it. I'm going to start off with some hand tools, do some rough shaping, and at some point I got tired of that and got down to the point where I wanted to sit in my chair and switched over to power carving. Once again, I got a basic idea in mind, but I really don't have a pattern. So if this doesn't turn out right, it's going to go in the fire. I jest, but I have a lot of stuff that's sitting on shelves behind me that's in various different states of finish. I have a lot of finished stuff that never sold, and I can't bring myself to throw it in the fire. I just keep thinking of Antiques Roadshow, where they pull out a carving made by the great-grandfather and find out that even the nasty sketches and the garbage that they cranked out over the years is worth a king's ransom. Not that I'm hoping for that, but why bet against it? You know what I mean? The only way you can lose a lottery is by not buying a ticket. Center lines. Looked at this thing and decided that important that you kind of have a little bit of depth as he hangs on the wall. So I'm trying to delineate where he would sit. Again, drawing it out with goblin's blood. If you've watched any of the past videos. This is a rough outline and subject to evolve and change as time goes through. I have to confess, this is costing me a lot of time. I'm getting ready to head out to Denver. As if you've read any of the stuff on the studio on the lake portion of the channel, I fly EMS helicopters up here in the north woods of Wisconsin. And every year I get the pleasure of going out to Denver, where I get a check ride and evaluation and find out if I'm still safe to fly. Just as an aside note, most of your doctors, they graduate from medical school. That's pretty much the end of it. So keep in mind, if you're flying in an airplane or flying in a helicopter on a commercial basis, your pilot gets checked out every year. And if you're going to visit your doctor, he doesn't. I don't know what that means, but you gotta hope that that guy's doing a little bit of reading in between, right? I am watching the 2019 Masters in the background with the sound off. Gotta admit, rooting for Tiger just a little bit. Us old guys gotta stick together. Delineating the eye here a little bit. What you see there is a flat skew, and I'm setting stop lines. Stop line is just a simple line that you carve down into that, where when you're carving to that, it stops. Most of these speeded up sessions are set along the 4 times as fast as the original. You'll see that I stop and run them over the diamond hone real quick and do a quick stropping of these chisels and various different knives. I am using that new set that in the tools video. I have done some sharpening on them since then. They came out of the package pretty sharp. I liked them. I'm griping a little bit about the gouge. It's got kind of a strange angle on it, the bigger gouge. I'm not sure what to do about that. Prior sets didn't quite have the angle on that, but if you're just starting out, it's not going to be something that bothers you.
His lordship doesn't appreciate being kept waiting.
As an example, many years ago when I started flying for the helicopters, we came out with night vision goggles. We came out with various different versions. But after I'd got a couple thousand hours, they came out with a really nice version where you could see a lot of stuff. It kind of annoyed me a little bit, because you could see too much. Imagine that. Gripe about, hey, this is too bright, I can see too much. I'm going to go back to the other way. Over the last 15 years since then, 20 years since then, got used to it. It's not a big deal. Went ahead and put a piece on the bottom of that so I could set it up in the vise. I do that with the decoys quite a bit. You'll see that piece also doubles as a stop for the bench if I'm on there. The first half of this video is rough carving by hand. I could complete this whole thing, but you couldn't take the pain, I assure you, of watching the 20 hours worth of this. Hand carving versus power carving, it's just two different aspects of the same thing. I do apologize for the bell ring in the background. I don't even notice it. It is that old clock on the wall. It does not have a movement in it, but it does still have the chimes in it. Every time I whack this bench into the wall, it rings a little bit. I don't even hear it. I think he needs the two eyes separated here. Kind of make a brow ridge or something along those lines. Once again, this is just making it up as we go along. This basswood is nice and dry, makes a real clean cut. I don't typically do stuff with wet wood. However, a lot of spoon carvers will go ahead and utilize wet wood as it slices kind of like butter. This is fairly soft. At some point in the future, I'll do a video and let you know what different kinds of woods act like. But my preferred carving wood, of course, is basswood. If I'm doing a detail competition piece on a bird or a decoy, I'll switch to Tupelo. When you're doing a little bit of power carving, the basswood has a tendency to fuzz up a little bit. That makes no sense to you, but it doesn't cut real clean with the power carving. This cuts pretty clean with hand tools. You can see I switch back and forth. That knife is basically doing a stop cut in there. All these tools are down in the description, and you can get most of them from Amazon if you're beginning to carve and get set there. Go back and take a look at my beginner tools and what you need to get started. You'll watch and see that by and large I'm using the same tools. The beauty about carving a dragon is no one's really sure what they look like. Most people haven't seen a dragon. I certainly haven't. We had a friend many years ago in Germany. I was carving a wizard, and she would come over and annoy us at the house when the kids were little. And she said, "What are you making?" And I said, "I'm making a wizard." And she said, in a beautiful German accent, "I don't think so." Kind of annoyed me a little bit. What do you mean you don't think so? What the hell do you know? You've never seen a wizard. I haven't either.
For what? To extract our neural energy.
Very perceptive, Captain. The collective neural energy of your crew will sustain my field for years to come.
You don't want to do this. Maybe we can help you find another source of energy.
Still at the phase where we're hogging away large chunks of wood, kind of taking it from the block phase. In the past we've talked about this. If you're drawing everything a round, circle, oval, starts with the head, and then you block out the shoulders, etc., etc. Take a drawing class or take a look at one online, and you'll notice that they sketch over and over again. Well, carving's kind of the same way. You start with square form, break it down to basic shapes, and then work from there. I'm drawing in grooves that should come down on the jaw, so I think, based on the dragons I've seen in the past. This is hard to do, just doing a head version out of this, because there's so much more you want to lay in there. You know, you've got the ear flaps, you've got horns sticking out to the back of it that really kind of draw your attention down into the motion. So I'm trying to get some of the motion on the jaws of this guy. At some point in the future, I will go ahead and inset teeth, probably put a tongue in there. And if I'm really ambitious, I might go ahead and try to carve out a big flame coming out. There's the nose going back, trying to define the nostrils. The two large pieces in the rear I'm going to leave for horns and flares going to the back. We switched over to power carving now. Make you feel like you're at the dentist. Kind of the same tools. Dentists pay a lot more for these tools than I do. They're a little bit on the pricey side. You'll notice throughout the video that I'm using two different power carvers. At some point, I'll do a breakdown of what those are. The black one primarily runs about 30,000 RPM, and I have a smaller collet in it. I decided my belly was sticking out too far here. Gotta fix that. But the black one has about 30,000 RPM, and when the blue one comes up, it's got a little larger collet in it. It runs about 40,000 RPM. Once again, they do sound quite a bit like a dental. It's a cuts-all bit in there. You can't really see it. I haven't figured out my camera skills to the point where I can get down the nitty-gritty and continue to get this thing produced in a reasonable amount of time. I don't have 2 or 3 cameras, or I'd have a smaller camera sitting down there in the detailed shot. Challenge is bad enough to try to keep this thing in frame. Occasionally you'll see me wandering around there. I'll look up at the camera. It's got a little flip lens on it. A little 70 EOS Canon 70D. I like it quite a bit. I researched it when I decided to start doing videos, and they said this was the way to go, and it definitely is. You could certainly work on a master's program on how to run this camera. 800 pages on the various different things this thing does, and I know about 5 of them. It's got a yellow cuts-all bit in it. It's considered to be a medium. The green is a coarse, and I don't recall what the fine is on that, but some of the fine bits I'm using there are diamond bits, and you'll see those now. They'll be primarily in this black handpiece. The 2 of them set up on the side. At some point in the future, I'll probably show you how that setup is. I've got the bits and various different things on a table to my right side. Kind of defining the lips as we go down. This is actually quite pleasurable. The noise aside, if you ignore that, you put something in the background on the TV and get your coffee going, and kind of mindless work. As with most hobbies, this is something that just takes up your time. And I do happen to have the studio out back, so I go out there and don't annoy the wife and on my time off. I work a 7-day stretch, 12 hours a day, 12, 14 hours a day, and then I have 7 days off. And I need something to do. At this point, can't get the garden going because there's snow all over the ground up here in northern Wisconsin. So I go out there, build a fire, turn on the TV, some mindless program like Star Trek, and create useless stuff. you're just getting into power carving, I'm really quite fond of this. Is a new set. Ordered the entire set of the yellow cuts-all bits. And it's kind of a long extended flame bit for those of you that are into power carving. And defining the nostrils works out pretty well. There's a link for those down in the description if you want to pick those up from Amazon. I really kind of like them. Unlike your hand carving tools, these cuts-all bits and whatnot, they're good for a couple years, and then they start to wear out. Your favorite one, especially, and you end up with this 100 bits that you can't use anymore, and 2 of them that you really kind of like, and they don't work so well anymore. But these yellow ones I'm quite fond of. I really don't notice a difference between those and the green, which is a little more aggressive cut. These are aggressive enough. Kind of defining the nose there, what I think it ought to look like. A little bit of a challenge because the backside there that I'm working on right now, it goes against the wall, but you kind of have to have that 3D effect. I should have a dust collection system going here, but I don't. It's hard to keep it running with the videos going on. This little ceramic stone, what's left of stones that I've gotten from Germany. Germany has unique tools, of course, and I suspect that the American tools to the Germans are unique. This little ceramic stone does a nice job of drawing the lines in. Again, I apologize. I don't have a double camera set up where I get in real close, so I'm kind of refining the grooves running down and the motion to the front. I'll finish this a little bit more later on. I might even burn some of these in there. I haven't quite decided. Dragons have scales. Dragons have feathers. And if you use the conventional wisdom of evolution, obviously dragons would be more bird-like than anything else. I do like kind of the way this is turning out. I wish it was a little bit bigger and had some more projections on there, but he is going to get teeth inset. I'm going to carve in the mouth there, define all this stuff in a, hopefully the number 2 of this. I hope it doesn't go into part 3, but I can't tell you just now if it does or not. This is a lot more fun, just kind of carving at random and making it up as you go along. I don't know if that makes you autistic or artistic. Something like this, if you're not trying to copy someone else's work, it comes out sometimes pretty good, and other times it doesn't. You don't get to judge how your carvings come out. That's my opinion. Other people do. I've told you in the past many things that I've tried to sell in the various different shops we've had over the years and whatnot. Something I thought was fantastic, people bought or didn't buy, and other things that I cranked out real quick to keep the inventory going, people snapped it up. So I don't know what people like per se, and you can help me out with that. You can just go ahead and make a comment down below, and if you'd like to see something in the future, I'll go ahead and carve that for you, or give it a shot anyway. This is getting down to kind of the fun part. Even though this is not 100% defined, I'm doing a little bit of the detail work just to see if it's going to work out. And I think based on what we have going right now, it probably will. This is kind of mindless work, as you can see, but it's quite relaxing. Trying to keep a flow going down towards the nose there. I suspect that nose is going to be quite a bit thinner, so a lot of this stuff on the top might not work out in the long run. I'm about to run out of these little carving stones. Can't find them in the U.S., and I haven't really found anything that works as well as these do. They're ceramic. German cheap ones that come in a pack of about 10. And the wife and I may have to just take a trip to Germany and go down to Oberammergau and eat some bratwurst and some good broaching, and generally enjoy the ambience of Germany. We spent 14 years there in the military, and I'm quite fond of the place. It'd be a good excuse. Go down and spend $4 for 2 packs of these bits, and spend $4,000 to get them. All good fun. The channel's basically new. We're picking up a few subscribers here and there. I'd like to see quite a bit more, obviously. I'm kind of an impatient sort of guy. It's only been up about a month. But we're approaching 10 subscribers. Woohoo! Whoopee. And I think at some point I'm going to decide when we get to 100 subscribers, I'll give some carvings away. This might be a contender in there. So if you go ahead and subscribe, or drop me an email or a comment, you might be in the contention for this when I finally make up my mind what we're going to do. Again, this thing may turn out to be complete garbage and no one wants it, but it's kind of fun. The process is what we're after here, not necessarily the finished product, although sometimes the finished product is pretty awesome. Holy smokes, you'd have thought a guy would have speeded this thing up by now. I'm not sure, recording the voiceover on this thing, exactly where I went ahead and speeded this up, because we're ad-libbing as we go along. It's the beauty of editing. I don't enjoy the editing process nearly as much as I enjoy the carving process. I try to think too much. What do you want to see? What do you don't want to see? And I really got no idea. I've looked at folks on there. I like this old Tony. If you're going to go and mess around and waste time on YouTube. I do like click spring. I'm into clocks a little bit. I do repair primarily cuckoo clocks and that sort of thing. I have a full-up machine shop on the other side of the studio here. At some point, you'll see me make some awls and various different tools and whatnot. And basically, I just mess around and amuse myself. So I'd like to share that with you. If you could, go ahead and click subscribe in the lower right-hand corner. You can support the channel. I think I'll continue to make these even if you don't support it. So they're fun. They are quite a little bit of a challenge. I burned a few lines in here just to see what it was going to do. And at some point, I suspect I'll probably be burning the rest of this thing. If you think carving's slow, you got to try burning feathers in. I've got a feather video that's in the process here. Just going to make one small, simple feather, and there's a little bit of a surprise involved in that. It shows you how I go about burning and stoning feathers. Dragons are birds. Changing bits. That thing's got a quick change collet on it. Here a pup, well, 200-pound pup whining in the background. We're coming near the end of part one. I'm going to have to break this up into several, at least 2 videos. Starting to set the eye in, give it a little definition. Defining the eye a little bit, cutting the lid out. I don't have a glass eye big enough for this. If I did, it'd be 15 or 20 bucks. And I'd have to give it a little more thought to laying out the pattern before I spent that kind of money on setting a glass eye in. At some point, I'm going to do a video on setting glass eyes and whatnot, on how I do it and go about doing it. Pretty neat little trick with quick wood, etc. Go ahead and subscribe to see that in the future. Undercutting the eye, trying to leave as much as I can of the eyeball intact. There are techniques in painting. I may or may not get to that and show you how that's done to really make an eye stand out. I can paint an eye to look just like a glass eye. The secret when you're all done painting the thing is to use a little bit of fingernail polish. Pretty it up. There are tricks and tricks of the trade, various different things that work. I've experimented with them over the years. Some of them work pretty good, some of them don't work at all. I would have thought a guy would have speeded this part up, but you're getting some good detail work in there.
No, this is not the first time I have stared into the gaping maw of death. But once, during the battle of the Great Gorge, I faced
Now we're going to draw the what I think is the center of the eye. I hope it's right because I'm getting ready to cut it away. I'm going to define a eyeball connection there. And I assure you, if you hung out this long, we are getting down to the point where we're at the end of part one. Just sit back and relax and listen to that and think, Doc, more gas, more laughing gas. There was a time in the past of power carving when the bits and whatnot were not well defined. They were not out there marketable, and people would go to their dentist and ask for the old bits that were not sharp enough to grind holes and whatnot in your teeth, and they didn't want to sterilize them anymore, and they would give those bits away for free. But with the advent of people conscious about disease and lawsuits and various different things that go on nowadays, that's not available to the carver anymore. Something to be said for small town America, where you're at the barbecue on the 4th of July talking with the dentist and telling you're a wood carver, and he says, hey, I've got a lot of little bits, diamond bits that don't work for teeth anymore, but you're more than welcome to come by and grab a box of them. Kind of imagining here what that eyeball would look like. Time to switch to a diamond bit, smooth that out a little bit. It's kind of got a rough surface that you can't see right now, but I'm gonna smooth it down with a diamond bit there. It does a little bit of sanding work.
In the hope that it will facilitate treatment once the antibody has been synthesized.
Will you be needing my assistance, Doctor?
Not until we have the answer to it.
Mr. Neelix, is there anything more I can do for you? Very well then. Computer, override command 1 EMH alpha and
Change the diamond bits out to one that's a little bit more aggressive. They come in very different cuts. Separating the eyeball from the eyelid. Trying to leave as much of that eye as I can to make it round. The old school masters would on wood carving would cut a circle or a hole in there, just like you do with the drill bit, for lack of better reference, and then allow, once you stood back, to see the shadow play upon that, and you got the pupil in there. I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I think up close work here like this, we're going to go ahead and paint that eyeball at some point in the future. You can see why I like sitting in my chair and carving. It's kind of mindless, it's comfortable, and I can flip this piece all around. a little bit more difficult when you're using hand tools as opposed to power tools, because you're kind of always looking for a leverage point. And here I'm really not. I'm just using this thing like a pencil. Oh, finally that guy speeded that thing up. You can see you can spend 20 minutes just working on this eyeball alone. I am trying to do these things relatively fast. I'm thinking about camera angles, various different things that go on in this, and learning the whole process. So bear with me if you would. I've switched to a round diamond bit, which allows me to carve in pretty much any direction. Oh, kind of draw in the center there, just playing around with it. I'm not sure that's going to be the final. But take a look at see what it looks like. May or may not carve that in there. I am not carving that in there. I'm still doing a little bit of round work. Haven't made up my mind. It's a work in progress, of course. It is a small diamond round. Doesn't do as much damage as some of the bigger ones. A lot of the mystery in carving is leaving shadows. And when you stand back and take a look away from it, different cuts and various different things you do will leave a shadow line, and that's almost as effective as carving 100%. Sometimes you can make something perfectly like it's supposed to look up close, and then when you stand back a little bit, the shadows warp it and distort it. Kind of liking a look at this fella here. Thus far, he's not firewood. Not much to say here as we're going through. We are coming to the end of the first portion of it. I am really enjoying the way it goes. So there's the end of part one. I'm glad you stuck around this long. Spring is just around the corner. You'll see some different things on there. Hey, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.